Yeah, we're live.
Very good.
Okay, we're live.
Okay. So let's call the meeting to order. And Mary, you want to see who all is here today?
Yes. President Lindner,
Yes, here.
Vice President Getz,
Here.
Commissioner Castellini,
Here.
Commissioner Thomas,
Here.
Commissioner North.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, we're all here. Thank you. And as usual, acknowledgement of public comments, of which there were none. So maybe in the next meeting we'll have some public comments. Anyway, moving on to the new business and the approval and acceptance of the state capital grants. Craig is going to lead us through that. Kara, I don't know, is there anything you want to share with us before we have Craig deliver?
I'm just thrilled that this is on the agenda. So
Yeah, no kidding, huh?
Craig will walk you through.
Thank you. Good afternoon, commissioners. So the first agenda item is accepting of state grants. This is from House Bill 529 for funding to assist for funding for 3 projects. The Kyle Plus Pavilion for $80,000, the Alt Park Wi-Fi for $46,000, and expansion of Smell Riverfront Park for $1.7 million. Staff is requesting the board approve us applying to the grants, accepting the grants, and for our director to sign the agreements with the state of Ohio. And the total dollar amount is up to $1,826,000.
Okay, thanks, Craig. Any questions or comments for Craig on this subject? Okay. Well, can we have a motion to accept these grants and approve them?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
All right. Let's have a vote on this. Mary?
President Lindner,
Yes.
Vice President Getz,
Yes.
Commissioner Castellini,
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner North.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. Great. So moving on to the next item, which is the all fund budget first reading. So Kara, you want to kick that off?
Yeah, I do. Thank you so much. I am so thrilled to be able to present this recommended budget to you today, or a preliminary budget for your input, discussion, that staff will certainly take back and bring to a second reading at our regular meeting later in March. But what we have prepared for you today is a recommended budget, which looks at the entirety of our operations. This is not inclusive of the capital budget, as we discussed and concluded that discussion in December. So we are then left with the entirety of our operations, which covers a whole lot of funds. And not that any discussions about capital can or need to be omitted. That is certainly something that we can take into consideration, or we know that this year we are looking to bring back the 980 funds or the capital resources back to you in July once the city budget is officially approved. But with that, before I kind of dig in, I'd like to just acknowledge the work of the staff on the creation of this budget. Both Mr. Sherman and I, for going on 2 years now, have kind of looked at this document and just had a real strong desire to align our budget with our actual operations, to give a tool for our staff to be empowered, accountable, to be able to, within our ranks, be able to manage portions of the budget as necessary. And that's what we've done. We have taken the entirety of our operations budget and aligned it exactly with our organization as we are structured today. So that was the first thing we did, was a lengthy needs assessment, and Craig and the senior leadership team walked through that process. We incorporated a lot of staff into that discussion and really identified where in the budget or how we needed to create a budget in order to align with our actual operations. And that is everything from salary resources, staffing resources, to supply resources. Everything is in its appropriate section right now. It's really awesome to see, and a lot of work went into that. But that was an integral part of creating this budget, was to make sure that it, from the get-go, that it was designed to align with our organization. And you can see in the board report, there are some of the details of some of the changes that we made were put in there. But just to start off by telling you that's how we created this budget for you. I'd like to walk through just a little bit of the recommended budget. The first thing I'd like to point out is in reference to Attachment A. Attachment A is a summary of an all funds budget. And first and foremost, you will notice that the summary of the recommended all funds budget is $25,660,600. That is inclusive of all funds. This is it's a reduction of our budget from last year, but that's a little tricky. Currently, our budget for fiscal year 21 is $30,800,000, but that is it is inflated from the original approved rate because it allowed for the dollars for the Smale Riverfront expansion project. We actually approved the budget in fiscal year 21 at $22 million or $22.8 million. So we are presenting to you today what is a 12% increase from what you approved going into, or what the city approved for fiscal year 21. This increase comes from a couple of different locations. Nearly $750,000 comes from the release of PVA. So that is the position vacancy allowance. We had, again, almost $750,000 that were set aside in our FY21 budget, which have now been released. And we have filled almost almost all of those positions. So you see a bump in the budget from that. That is the primary reason that the budget is inflated, or the operations portion of the budget is inflated. On Attachment A, I would also like to bring to your attention the restricted funds. That is listed on the third and fourth line under the operations budget. The sum total of those does reflect a decrease of about $450,000. That's the same issue. We are no longer compensating for some salary losses or reimbursements for salaries, and so there's not as much need for dollars in those accounts. I do appreciate, we'll dig into all of this, but I just want to kind of present the overview. And I would like to then speak about, so that is the sum total of the general fund dollars and other dollars outside of the commissioner's funds. With specific reference to the commissioner's funds, we're kind of in an interesting place here as well. Our budget request to you is for $1,601,715 is our recommended budget. And I'm sure you have picked up on, or we helped to highlight here, that is a $60,000 decrease. This is, it's again one of those weird situations where, although it appears as a $60,000 increase, a lot of the dollars that were included in the FY20 budget amounted to approximately $200,000 just for salary reimbursements. So the original budget was approved. The budget as it was approved for FY21 included about $200,000 for salaries. Just for a rough comparison, the FY20 budget was 1.15 million. So we are seeing a significant increase from 2 years ago. And again, that is just to support operational expenses. Believe that covers a bulk. I do look forward to digging into that with you, but that covers a bulk of the budget as we are presenting to you, both for the operational budget as well as the commissioner's budget. I do want to inform you that we have been asked to participate in an 8% reduction exercise. I do know that in the last couple of days, or maybe the past week, there has been discussion about the impact of an item that will be on the ballot of a $50 million impact to the city's budget. That has not yet been requested. We have not yet been requested to engage in a budget reduction exercise. It is not reflected in this budget. If the city does in fact ask us to complete that exercise, we will certainly bring that to you. Just for a frame of reference, we did complete a 25% budget reduction exercise when COVID first happened. That was one of the requests that the budget office gave us. And just to put it in perspective, it basically summed up the elimination of part-time and seasonal work, as well as our Explore Nature programming. That's the kind of impact we would be looking at, which ultimately has an impact on services, but we are not there yet. So I just wanted to kind of reference that because it is not included in here. It is not considered in here. What we are presenting to you in our budget reduction exercise was requesting a total of $766,000, which is not an insignificant amount. As you can see in the board report, we did have a couple of positions that were still vacant. It was actually kind of a discovery process, and not that we were unaware of these positions, but we certainly discovered where we still had not yet filled positions. And because none of these positions are currently filled, we're currently not relying on those operational aspects. And in all honesty, should they stay in the budget, we would probably be looking at some add deletes to add positions where we do feel that we need them, because these are not necessarily reflective of where we see gaps in our system. But that gets us a strong portion of the way to the 8% reduction exercise. Another significant portion of the budget reduction exercise is being met by kind of another discovery process, as you are aware, because we brought a large dollar agenda item to you last month in the natural resources budget, in the 792 budget. But this is related to forestry assessment, but it is within our general fund budget. And that is a large amount of money, approximately $600,000 that are assessed taxes that are paid on local, county, state, and federal lands, and it comes out of our budget. So we have asked for a credit when that 8% reduction exercise occurs, and in the future, any funds related to that 610 or 600,000 that are not affiliated with parks will start from a lower dollar amount. Like any budget reduction from now on will exclude any of those funds that are related to county, state, or federal lands or other city departments. But we asked for a credit because we've been doing this for a long time, and potentially, you know, with reduction exercises or reductions that have been requested in the past, we think that we were unfairly kind of assessed at that point. So the budget office has been supportive of a large dollar credit, a one-time, can't do it again credit. And so that's how we met the remainder of the 8% reduction exercise. We were additionally asked to complete a budget reduction exercise for Fund 302 of 4%. We were able to meet that with one position that we currently have vacant. That position is a position that we would prefer be filled, but that was the opportunity that we saw for meeting that budget reduction exercise. And the last component I will tell you about, Craig will walk you through some commissioner fund information, but the last component of the budget I will walk you through is what we are looking for as exceptions to our budget. We are requesting 3 exceptions, or your consideration of 3 exceptions. The first exception would be to add 2 positions to our general fund budget. These would be positions of facility maintenance specialists that would specifically work with our carpentry team. One of the, I think, shortfalls that we have as an organization is being able to be proactive on carpentry work specifically. And one of the things that we could do, or we would see an impact if we had a stronger, larger carpentry team, would be on par with what occurred at French Park last year. There was a dedicated attention to that area, and imagine if that were to occur system-wide. This is a deviation from, I think, what the commissioner's original intent was when we had formed a trail crew, which remained unstaffed, defunct for a long time, and has since been transformed into a trail coordinator, utilizing the entire park staff as trail maintenance staff. So we do have a staff currently, carpentry staff. We have a DCL position, which is a mid-management position, as well as a trade carpenter who are going to handle our carpentry needs. This is just an opportunity to potentially make a huge impact on all of our trail users, over 65 miles of trail. It would take us years with that expanded team to make the kind of impact that we would like to make, but it is a real opportunity to make a true impact on our park users. So the first exception is a request for the addition of 2 facility maintenance specialists to be added to our 050 budget. And then the second 2 requests come from budgets where the financial resources are already available. It's just making the decision to expend those funds. And again, this has kind of come through a discovery process of what are our available resources. So looking to impact the green space team, and to add a full-time labor position, which is currently a part-time position, as well as 2 recreation specialists who are part-time employees to assist with the flower pot program. So those are exceptions that we are recommending to enhance our operational services. And the final component of this presentation is the addressing the commissioner's funds. And for that, I am going to turn it over to Mr. Sherman.
Thank you, Kara.
Here.
Go to the commissioner funds. Can we dig in a little bit on this operating budget?
Sure.
I already am in a state of feeling pretty overwhelmed with what we've already talked about, and I'm trying to tie together this presentation.
Sure.
Is that okay with you, Mr. President? Sorry.
That is quite all right with me. Yes.
Okay.
I don't think you're alone in your sense of trying to get, or at least I'm also trying to get my arms wrapped around some of this as well and have some questions.
Well,
So
we're
go ahead,
ready.
Molly.
Okay.
We're ready to dig in with you.
This will help help us kind of bite it off in a way that we can kind of chew on it. I will admit, I'm accustomed to looking at budgets that really, I'll say, add some clarity as to what is included in the actual budget number itself. So when I look at, for instance, a $9 million budget, which in the general fund, which I think is really, you know, a big part of what we should be focusing on here today. I don't really get an understanding from this write-up of what that includes and what changes are assumed from where we are today into the fiscal year that we're approving here. So for instance, I see we're starting as with an approved budget as kind of our starting point, but I'd like some clarity as to how that relates to what's actually in place and has occurred. In a year like fiscal year ending 2021, obviously there's been a lot of changes in headcount. Here's what I'm trying to get a feel for, Kara. If we've got X amount of headcount today, what positions do we still need to fill? And you kind of mentioned those. And then what positions in total are we approving? I'm getting kind of scattered because I'm seeing this position vacancy allowance, a release, and then a reduction. I can't even tie that back into the budget. So I'm asking a little bit more of a broad question. Where are we currently, and can we put this kind of in the framework of what we're adding and what we're reducing from where we are today and the budget impact of those changes?
Okay. The answer is yes, we can get you that information, and there are documents which we can certainly provide to you which show how these numbers were determined. It's a fairly clean document. It shows, we call them bureaus, and it shows, you know, the West District, East District, Greens. It's split up to very targeted portions of our operations. We can definitely provide that with you so you can see where those sum totals came from. I can absolutely understand where the confusion is on the position vacancies. So I'll try and clarify that just a little bit. So where we are in terms of our organizational structure is that we are almost at full capacity for the positions that we intended to fill. We have a couple of professional positions and a couple of frontline positions that we still need to fill. And we can definitely get you that information as well. These are, so the budget that we've presented to you does not take into account any of these position vacancies. The budget that we've presented, that 9 million, assumes full staffing. This is, the positions that we have listed here for you is a direct result of the 8% reduction exercise that we were asked to complete. There has been a discovery process from when we spoke with you guys, I think in like October, November of last year, about the impacts from the early employment retirement program, or early retirement program. And we had tons of positions where it was like, we did add deletes, we removed, we changed, we did all of those. And throughout that process, things continued to come to light. And these are the positions, these are these are the positions which remain on our table of organization, which we do not have any current plans to fill. Should the reduction exercise not be completed, what I would see us doing is to kind of take the sum resources that are available with these positions and determining where in our organization positions would be better suited. So kind of danced around your question a little bit.
Well, let me get specific then on this, and then I'll turn it over to others that have questions. I'm not really sure what our starting point is. If we're supposed to be starting with our budget that's approved, which is 8.3 million, are we supposed to be reducing that by the 8% reduction factor of 766? And then adding back to it your budget exception request of 148?
The,
Because we're up 789. Well, I don't understand where all that addition is.
So commissioners, definitely, and I do want to, for detail information, we definitely can provide detail information. The city sets our targets for especially the general fund. And our general fund started at 9,560,000. And I may be off by a couple $1,000, but then the city identifies a target reduction amount of 8%, which equated to $766,000. The city asked us to reduce our general fund budget. And they also additionally put targets out there for the other restricted funds and funds that are especially tax related, such as 302 is the other one where they asked for a reduction of that 4%.
and Commissioner North, if it helps even a little bit more, the 8% reduction is an exercise. As the city budget office and the city manager's office and the mayor's office go through the budget with the city council, we will have better clarity on whether or not that reduction is necessary. So the dollars that we are presenting in the recommended budget do not take into consideration the 8% reduction. What is presented in the packet is information to you on what we staff have identified as potential reductions to reach that, or that's what we've put together for the exercise. So
Eric, excuse me, would you say that again?
sure. So
Would
your packet includes a lot of information. The attachment A does not take into consideration the 8% reduction exercise. So that is a fully funded budget, which is kind of a starting point to be able to present to the city and say, this is what Parks needs or would like in order to operate in fiscal year 22. So attachment A is the staff's recommended budget for your consideration and discussion today. What we wanted to inform you of is, and allow for your feedback, is what we have formulated to answer what we've been asked to do as an 8% reduction exercise. So if we were formally asked as they go through the budget process to remove $766,000 from our budget, what we have presented to you in the budget packet was some position vacancies and a one-time reimbursement from Fund 329 and an additional credit of about $250,000, which gets us to that 766. It is all of our hopes that budget reduction is not accepted or it is not imposed upon us. And what I would like to do at that point is, if we know that we will not need to do that reduction or do less of a reduction, would be to take those currently position vacancies and look at what our needs are currently and whether or not those positions make sense or they should be reallocated into different operational functions. So it's an exercise, but it is not reflective of the numbers that you have been given to consider.
So Craig, did I hear you correctly that the original FY 2022 budget was about 9.5 million?
9.6, $9,582,000.
So then first question is, how is that determined? Is that just something that there's a factor, a growth factor on the previous year, or how does that number come about?
That's determined by, one is first the release of PVA positions from fiscal year 21. And that helps with the increase, significant increase there, as well as any COLA increases going into fiscal year 22. And that's how that number is the city generates that number for us.
Okay, so that started out at about 9.6, but this is reflecting basically a 9.06. Now what caused the differential, the reduction between those two?
So the reduction there would be accepting those position vacancies for the fiscal year 22, but then not basically getting that one-time credit of 240,000 for that assessment that's been really increasing our target through the last 20 years. So if we would go through the exercise, we would actually and provide reductions up to 766,000. You would see that 9 million decrease by $247,000.
So we're already, so the difference between the 9.6 and where this is, we've already kind of started that process of reducing that 8%. And we would just, if we did have to reduce it 8%, we've already done some of that heavy lifting to the tune of roughly $600,000 or 550.
I believe it's about 510,000. I have to go
Something
back.
like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we would only have another couple 100,000 that we would have to reduce.
If they would reject the one-time credit, yes, we would have to
Okay.
look at other areas to reduce.
Okay,
Well,
and
can I-
Apologize. I would like to apologize to the commissioners. That was a misunderstanding on my part. What I was trying to explain wasn't actually accurate. So as Craig just stated, that is reflective of the position vacancies, and I do apologize.
okay,
So that was my first question too. So the attachment A is already after the 8% exercise?
Yes.
Yes.
okay.
Okay.
My
Okay.
deepest apologies as misunderstanding on my
Yeah,
part.
more than likely as we go through this process, I know I've just been here a couple of years, but I noticed the city likes to ask for a large amount, then they take a portion of that amount.
Okay.
So for us through this exercise, what we're looking for is if they do take that portion, they take that 500,000 and we maintain at least 247,000 as kind of a credit to us for the targets being inflated through the last 2 decades.
So on that issue, is it safe to say that we were basically paying the assessment for county property and other properties that were not ours?
Yes. Of the $610,000, only 20% of those properties belong to the parks.
Okay, so we were paying other people's freight for 20 years on that. We're getting a one-time credit.
Yes, that's the hope.
We are getting a one-time credit, but what
and a promise not to have to pay their credit again, or that we or are we going back to we got to pay everybody else's freight?
We will still have to pay for the property tax or the urban forestry assessment, but they will be backing out the urban forestry assessment tax in our general fund out of the target equations going forward. So next fiscal year, when they have a target of say 9.8 million, or I can actually look at it right now. Yeah, it's 9.8 million. 9.8 million. They're going to, when they calculate that target, they're going to take that urban forestry assessment out of there. So they'll take out 610,000, then they'll calculate the target for us, which will reduce our target probably about $50,000.
Maybe let me put this one in perspective because it's a small thing compared to everything we got to look at. So the budget, and to your original question, Brad, of where did the 9.582 come up with, the starting point? Built into that starting point was funds to cover the full amount of property tax to be paid for the city, state, federal, all of that. So the 9.5, they had already given us money in there to cover that.
Okay.
The delta, the credit that we're getting is because when they have that in there, that's a tax that has to be paid. So every year when they come back to us and say, you've got a 8% decrease or a 10% decrease, we were factoring that in, but we still had to pay 100% of that tax. So in theory, we were being penalized out of our own spendable money by the tax that had to be paid for city, state, local.
Okay.
So what Craig is saying, that now that this has come to light, going forward, when they say you need to do an exercise to reduce by 8%, they will not take this tax portion into consideration when they decrease it.
Okay.
So that's why the one-time credit that's when it comes into play, is when they ask for us to decrease.
Okay. Thank you.
Just
I would just like to ask that this general fund operations on page 16, that first paragraph, clarify here, these 2 points need to be brought together, that the increase in the budget to 9063 was release of the PVA as well as the 8% reduction requested by
Yes.
the manager's office. That would have saved us about 10 minutes of this discussion at least. It took us a while to get there.
just a quick question. Is the 8% across the board for all departments, or is ours higher?
No, it is 8% across all departments was the request.
Okay. And just to be clear, the attachment A on page 20 reflects that exercise. That's correct?
Craig, did you clarify it's not the full 8%, but rather only the total of the 5 position vacancies? Or is that the full 8%?
On the page 17, if that is the full 8%, but keep in mind there's a credit in there, so we're looking at 518,860, and of that 100,000 is increased reimbursement out of restricted fund 329, but we're looking at a decrease of 418,000 for PVA positions.
And that's
Okay.
9,063.2.
Linda, re-ask your
Yes.
question, please.
I
on
was asking
attachment A.
about
Attachment
attachment A. As we look at the numbers on attachment A, are they all reflective of the requested 8%?
Yes.
Okay.
So exercise accomplished on attachment A under the recommended budget.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. That does add some clarity.
President, we have been joined by Mr. Ramsey from the Central HR Department.
Okay, so somebody needs to keep track of where we are in this process here, and we will enter into an executive session shortly and then return back to this, what is the term? Thrilling discussion on our budget going forward. So let me find the magic words that, yeah, here it is. And okay, so I move that we enter into executive session pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22 parenthesis G to consider the employment and discipline of a public employee.
Second.
Thank you. Mary?
President Linder,
Yes.
Vice President Getz,
Yes.
Commissioner Castellini,
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner North.
Yes.
Motion passes.
And you will let us know when we're no longer live, please.
Yes, and we will